Lee Strobel is a former investigative journalist who for many years professed atheism while searching for evidence of Jesus. Upon finding the answers he was looking for, he became a Christian and subsequently wrote the best-selling book, The Case for Christ. Since then, he has authored dozens more books and has also become a teaching pastor and professor who truly wants the world to know the Lord. His new book, A Case for Heaven, a journalist investigates evidence for life after death, looks at what we can expect when we leave this earth. Please welcome Lee Strobel.
Lee, hi, welcome.
Hi, my friend. How you doing, Bobby? Good to see you.
I'm great. It's so good to see you again. For those who don't know your story, it's an amazing one. Can you begin by sharing with us your journey of faith?
Sure. I was an atheist for much of my life. My background's in journalism and law, so I tend to be a very logical, rational person. I didn't think that faith was rational, and so I rejected it. I married an agnostic, and she one day came to faith in Jesus, and I thought it was the worst news I could ever get. So I decided to use my journalism training and legal training and investigate, is there any credibility to Christianity or any other world religion? And I spent 2 years doing that until ultimately I came to the conclusion that based on the historical data, I was convinced that Jesus not only claimed to be the Son of God, but he backed up that claim by returning from the dead. And that's when I bent my knee to Jesus, received forgiveness for my sins, and God has taken me since then on a great adventure all around the world, telling people the good news about who he is.
That's awesome. I remember you saying that you wanted to save your wife from a cult.
Yeah, that's right.
You worked at the Chicago Tribune, right, at the time?
That's right. I was legal editor of the Chicago Tribune.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I think so many millions of people have loved your book, The Case for Christ. I know my daughter loved the movie. She was telling me that earlier about how much of an impact it had on her life. And that's why I'm excited about your new book coming out, The Case for Heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Several years ago, I almost died. My wife found me unconscious on the bedroom floor, and when I woke up in the emergency room, the doctor looked at me and said, "You're one step away from a coma, 2 steps away from dying." And so I lingered there on the edge of death for quite a while and sort of hovering between life and the afterlife. And when you have an experience like that, it's very clarifying.
Yeah.
The only thing that is really important in moments like that is what happens after you close your eyes for the last time in this world. And so I survived that incident, but it really got me thinking, how do I know that the Bible's teachings about the afterlife are true? What does science say about it? What do history and theology and philosophy say about it? And that led me on an investigation that's resulted in my book, The Case for Heaven.
Well, I've certainly heard philosophical arguments and historical arguments, but I have not heard scientific arguments for a case for heaven. That point really stood out to me just as you were speaking. What scientific evidence is there for an afterlife or for heaven?
Yeah, there have been 1,000 scholarly studies that have been done on the phenomenon of near-death experiences. Now, I was kind of skeptical about those, but a couple of things convinced me that they really do indicate that our spirit, our consciousness survives our physical death. And the one thing that I learned is that we have corroboration of many of these experiences. For instance, there was a woman named Maria who died, clinically dead. Her spirit floated out of her body. She watched the resuscitation efforts there in the emergency room. Her spirit floated through the hospital to the roof. And when she came back into her body, she said, "Oh, by the way, there's a man's tennis shoe on the third-story ledge, the roof of the hospital. And it's a blue shoe. It's left-footed. It's got a little scuff mark over the toe, and the shoelace is tucked under the heel." And they went up and looked, and sure enough, it was there. That's just one of many examples of corroboration that we have that our spirit does survive the physical death of our body. In fact, one researcher studied about 100 different examples where people have had verifiable observations that they have made while they were out of their body. And 92% of those observations were absolutely accurate. Another 6% were almost completely accurate. So it's like 98% accuracy of people seeing things that they otherwise could not have seen. In fact, we have records of several blind people who were blind since death, And when they have this near-death experience, they can see, and then when they come back into their bodies, they've lost their eyesight again.
You mean it's like they're blind? You mean like a blind person died? Oh, yeah. You mean like a blind person dies and then they can like see their hospital room or see themselves for the first time?
They actually see people who preceded them in death. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's
the other thing that I found fascinating was research by John Burke shows that even though there's a lot of differentiation in the peripheral details of these near-death experiences, the core experiences that people have are consistent with Christian theology. That was a real revelation for me, and that was important, I think.
Well, let's talk about that because, a lot of people who are watching already believe in heaven, but it's interesting. As a pastor, I've had the honor of being with many people when they died, either right when they took their last breath or, within the last few days, to just spend some time with them and encourage them and pray with them. Most of the people I've met with are really at peace with the transition in their life, but every once in a while it's really sad when you meet someone who seems kind of scared. They either are not sure about their faith or about the afterlife. And I always do my best to just encourage people. There's a part of me I'm like, well, you'll see in just a second, not like just a second, but I think you'll be okay. But I really want to I want people to be encouraged during that time so they can focus on, having those last moments with their families and to leave in a spirit of joy. Is there something you would say to someone in that moment if they were sort of feeling afraid or not sure?
Yeah. Well, I hope my book's an encouragement to them, but I think what I would say is I love the way that Jesus uses the metaphor of a home when he talks about heaven. He said his Father's mansion has many rooms in it. And it just reminded me, if you've ever traveled, maybe in a faraway land and you've been gone for a long, long time and you're tired, you're exhausted, you're homesick, and you finally get home and you get in your own bed and there's warmth and security and love and comfort. And I love the way Jesus uses that metaphor of a home to help us understand that this is where we really belong. We're going to spend a lot more time in eternity than we spend in this world. And that warmth and love and grace, that imagery of home, I think is very comforting to me. Mm-hmm. And I hope to people who are facing some anxiety as they pass in this world.
Yeah, that's right. Well, one of the sad things about a television interview is they're only 6 or 7 minutes. You can't go in that long form. This is a really interesting subject to me. I think we could go on this for at least an hour and really dig into some of those things. But if you're at home and you're wishing this could be longer, I want to just say, well, the good news is there's a book, and get it. It's called The Case for Heaven. Case for Christ was amazing, really a wonderful work. And I want to encourage you to get The Case for Heaven. I know it's going to touch your heart in a profound way. Lee Strobel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bobby. Love you, man. God bless you and all your people there.
God bless you. Thank you.